Hi. Welcome to the fourth episode of Wow, But How?
Marcos Jr. is cementing deals that completely undermine the sovereignty of the Philippines and the long-term safety and security of the Filipino people.
Is it time for Filipinos to start worrying about a possible war over Taiwan? Or, war in its own soil? How ready is the Philippines for a war? If there is something the Ukraine war has taught us, it is that any future military conflict, especially in the South China Sea, the West Philippine Sea or the Straits of Taiwan, will be a war primarily fought with short-range and long-range missiles, even hypersonic missiles, together with all internet systems being disrupted by cyber warfare. The current political relationship between China and Philippines has been at the center of the growing tension in the Asia-Pacific region. Filipinos start worrying about a possible war over Taiwan that would rain down Chinese missile strikes on any of the U.S. bases around the archipelago. In this episode, we will take a closer look on the possibility of a war between the Philippines and China. How is the Philippines' territorial and economic relations with China? As the territorial dispute between China and the Philippines continues, what are their military forces capable of to resist a Chinese attack? But first, let's recall events that have led to the Philippines and China issue and how the relationship of both countries is getting sour. The Philippines and China have been long embroiled in a territorial dispute through their overlapping claims in the South China Sea. To get a better understanding of the underlying issue, let's trace where the Philippines and China issue has started. It all started in 1947 when China demarcated its territorial claims in the South China Sea with an 11-dash line on a map. In 1953, the Chinese Communist Party simplified the border to 9 dashes. The 90-minute battle between 3 Chinese naval vessels and a Philippine Navy gunboat in 1996 triggered a crisis in China-Philippine relations. It revived the U.S.-Philippine military ties. Soon after, U.S. Navy SEALs conduct a joint exercise with its Philippine counterpart here. June 2011, the Philippines expressed its mounting concern about naval incursions in its claimed territory near the Spratly Islands. There were at least 5 recorded incursions by Chinese ships that year. In April 2012, diplomatic relations between Manila and Beijing declined further after the Philippines dispatches a warship to confront Chinese fishing boats in the Scarborough Shoal. China retaliated by dispatching its own surveillance vessels to protect its fishermen, and a 2-month standoff ensues. China quarantined some fruit exports from the Philippines and warns against tourism to the country. The Philippine losses in its banana exports to China reached an estimated $34 million that year. From this point, Beijing maintains regular patrols that prevent Philippine fishermen from accessing these waters. In October 2012, the Philippine government began referring to the South China Sea as the West Philippine Sea in all official communications. Former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton also affirmed this action.
So you can count on me to protect the interests of the Philippines in the South China Sea or the West Philippine Sea, because it's important that these disputes be handled in a diplomatic and legal manner, not by force or seizure.
Has taken the step of bringing China before an arbitral tribunal under Article 287 and Annex 7 of the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea.
不接受、不参与菲律宾单方面提交的南海仲裁案。中国外交部今天已经在第一时间发表声明，阐明。
In July 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague rules in favor of the Philippines. The tribunal finds that China's declared 9-dash line has no legal basis for its claims to historic rights to resources in the South China Sea.
Di pag-asa because may mga sundalo ako dyan. At pag yan ang ginalaw ninyo, ibang istorya na yan. Di sabihin ko na yung mga sundalo ko, prepare for suicide missions.
In 2020, China more aggressively asserts its claims in the South China Sea as countries in the region battled the coronavirus pandemic. The next month, China opens new research stations on the Fiery Cross and Subi reefs. Soon after, Beijing established 2 administrative districts that cover the Paracel and Spratly Islands. China's reclamation of the reefs has never stopped from then on. Now that we have traced back the core of the issue, do you think the cracks in current political relationship between China and the Philippines is reason enough to wage war? Going back to the question of whether there is a possibility of a war between the Philippines and China, the answer is most likely a no. But there is still a catch. Keep watching to find out about the only reason the Philippines and China issue will result to an attack in the Philippines. So, why did experts believe an attack by China is unlikely? First, the ethnic Chinese population in the Philippines, who originated mainly from Guangdong or Fujian provinces in mainland China, still enjoy disproportionate economic and political power in the Philippines. Majority of the trading activities of any scale in the Philippines is in the hands of entrepreneurs who are either Chinese or Filipino Chinese. From distributors to manufacturers, everything is pretty much owned by Filipino Chinese. From middle class to the millionaires and billionaires, commerce is a Filipino Chinese game. In the recent Global Rich List by Huruan report, it was stated that of the 20 billionaires in the Philippines, 9 are of Chinese descent. That makes up 45% of the top 10 richest persons in the country. Among the notable super-rich, ethnic Chinese residing in the country is the Xi family, which was also named as Asia's 10th richest according to a 2020 ranking by Bloomberg, and consistently ranking at the top of Forbes' richest. Filipino Chinese are often still loyal to China. With the economic activities under their control in the Philippines, an attack by China will not only be destructive of its own successful diaspora in Southeast Asia. It would also weaken, if not totally destroy, the economic gains it enjoys from such tight connections. Therefore, a war between China and the Philippines is not profitable enough for the Chinese. Doing so will cause them to pay a huge price, whether it's human lives or international pressure. Second, both countries gain from the supply of Filipino manpower in China. Filipinos constitute the largest ethnic minority in Hong Kong, numbering approximately 130,000 persons. Many of them work as foreign domestic helpers. The salaries of Filipinos working in mainland China or Hong Kong are almost twice or thrice the amount they would earn in the Philippines. Most of these Filipinos are women working away from home to save money for their children, seeking better living standards with higher wages than in the Philippines. A report from Statista revealed that in 2021, Filipinos working in Hong Kong alone sent approximately $722.23 million in cash remittances. This enables their families to afford the necessities of life in the country. As for China, more and more women are unwilling to stay at home to look after their kids. Instead, they prefer to go work, earn money, and co-provide for the family. Dual-career family is a common trend in Hong Kong and has a huge impact on its economy. With this, it is safe to say that the Philippines isn't dumb enough to start a fight with China, as a lot of Filipinos would lose their jobs. China, on the other hand, with their declining population, cannot afford to lose a good portion of its workforce if Filipinos are to be repatriated, and Chinese women must fend for their kids at home. Third, the Philippines alone isn't capable of fighting China as it lacks military hardware and technology. Although Filipino soldiers are known to be excellent jungle combat fighters, it is still a weak force compared to other countries. It is inconceivable that they would present a serious challenge to a determined Chinese military assault. Though we don't wish to diminish the Filipino military or their bravery, they simply don't have the resources to repel an invasion by the military of a larger and more economically prosperous country. To get the better understanding of the huge disparity, let's compare the military strength of the Philippines and China. For as long as the Philippines remain neutral, the possibility of a war between the Philippines and China is unlikely. China's enemy isn't the Philippines. Its enemy is the United States wanting to control not only the Pacific but also Asia. USA wants global domination. China itself wants power, and it can only be achieved by maintaining a strong economy. South China Sea is one of the most used trade routes in the planet, with billions of dollars of business transported through this area. There is an unspoken but clear threat to China that any attacks upon the Philippines will be met with a swift and unpleasant response by the United States. The U.S. military presence in the West Philippine Sea has not deterred China from grabbing more atolls and islands from the Philippines and arming them with missiles. The Mutual Defense Treaty between the U.S. and the Philippines is of no help. There has to be an act of war by China against the Philippines to trigger a U.S. military response. So, will China declare war against the Philippines? Probably a no. But the presence of so many U.S. military bases inside Philippine bases is making the Philippines an open and vulnerable target for retaliatory strikes by China. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like or share button. Feel free to subscribe so I can continue making videos like this one. Thank you, and I cannot wait to see you again soon for the next episode of Wow, But How?